try out try out the material and get a better idea of advanced dentistry. So I would like to start by saying that there is actually a lot of advancement in dentistry, and with this advancing dentistry, we have to keep up with the new techniques, with the new technology that is coming up. So today we are going to talk about this new type of composite that has come out. Not wasting much of time, I'll just start my presentation. And ma'am, you'll have to allow me to do the screen sharing.
Sure.
And I would request all the participants to keep themselves on mute and switch off their videos so that maximum there'll be no streaming. You will get maximum of my lecture benefit. There will not be any buffering. Also, any questions will be taken up at the end of the webinar. You can write it down on the chat, and then Dr. Romika can just speak it out loud at the end of the webinar, and I will answer all the questions at the end.
Ma'am, I've made you the host, so you can share your screen.
Surely, surely. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
Just one moment. All right. So, like Dr. Romika introduced me, I am Dr. Sonali Luthra Gandhi. I've been practicing since 2012. I have worked with Dr. Komal Majumdar since then for at least almost 7 to 8 years. Besides that, I have my own private practice at Ghatkopar as well as Matunga. We have 2 clinics which are both located in Mumbai. And to top all of that, I come from a family of 5 dentists. Dr. Aniket Gandhi, Dr. Dipti Gandhi, Dr. Mitali Gandhi, Dr. Dharat Gandhi, my husband, and myself. So between us, we have 5 of us, so it's possible for us to manage these 2 clinics. Now, coming to the topic of the day, single shade restoration, truth or gimmick. I'm sure everybody is now in this question mark that is it really possible to do restorations with only single shade? So today during the lecture, you will come to know whether the answer is yes or no. I'm going to cover a lot of topics today, a little bit about composites, the protocol, XYZ, directly jumping on to the composite resin. Now, before we get into actually single shade restoration, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the composite resins. Don't worry, I'm not going to go into the material science, or I'm not going to bore you with the, the entire background of it. But as we all know, there are a lot of markets. There are a lot of companies in the market that are providing us composites. Like we have 3M, we have Tetrick, we have GC, we have Kulzer. We have a lot of products available in the market today to choose from. So there's already a confusion where which material should we use, whether this company is good or that company is good, but which is giving us the good results. I'm sure everybody here has a confusion. Like, should I buy 3M? Shall I buy Tetrick? So what do we end up doing? Plus, in this confusion, to add on to it, every company in itself also has different types of composites. For example, 3M has a range from Z100 to Z350. There are multiple types of composites. Tetrick has Tetrick N-Ceram, Evo-Ceram. Kulzer has Charisma Smart, Diamond, Venus, etc. So there is a lot of doubt as in which composite should I buy? Which composite is suited for me best? Which composite would give me the best result when it comes to an anterior restoration or a posterior restoration? So what do we land up doing? We land up depending on our MR. Any MR that enters our clinic tells us कि मैडम अभी इस पे ऑफर आया है, अभी आपको 8 syringe XYZ प्राइस में मिलेगा. So what do we land up doing? We land up buying the most cost effective composites, because all of us here know that composite restorations or any composite dentistry is not a very rewarding part of dentistry. Unfortunately, the Indian mentality does not believe in doing very great restorations. They just believe in filling up the teeth like masala bhar do. So we believe that composite is not a very rewarding field. So we'll end up saving money over there. And we do not realize that we are compromising on the quality of the restoration. So what we need to keep in mind is when we buy any composite, we need to understand that first and foremost, it needs to be a strong composite. There has to be sufficient strength, because most of our cases lie in the posterior region, especially the class 2s, wherein it needs to bear the occlusal forces. So thus we need a restoration material which is going to be good and strong. Secondly, not only does it have to be strong, but it needs to have the polishing capability. It needs to have that shine. It needs to give that luster, especially if we are working in the anterior zone. Then only we can get beautiful lifelike aesthetic results. Like this, it has to be flawless. It has to be... Can I request the participants to mute themselves, please? Yeah. So, like I was saying, not only does it have to be a strong restoration, but at the same time, it also has to give us the aesthetic results that we are looking at. All right. So, coming to the next part. Now, we all know that we have a range of composites available in the market, starting from macrofills, microfills, hybrids. Now, in today's world, we are using only hybrid composite. We are using either a microhybrid or a nanohybrid or a nanofill. Now, when we are looking at composite dentistry, okay, this is really disturbing, Dr. Dipesh. Give me a moment, please.
Dr. Dipesh, can you please mute yourself?
Please, I request once again all the participants to mute themselves and switch off their video so that the presentation can go on smoothly. Thank you. All right. Okay, so like I was saying that currently in the market, there are two types of composites which are the most trending composites. That is your microhybrid and a nanohybrid or a nanofill. Now, when I say a microhybrid, that means we have micro-sized particles along with a mixture of other sized particles to give us good strength. But the only drawback with a microhybrid is it does not give us sufficient polishability. So they've come up with a nanohybrid and a nanofill, which will give us good strength because naturally the size of the particles are extremely small. So you get good strength because of the large filler content, but at the same time, the polishability, the aesthetics really is amazing. So when we are working in a posterior area, wherein we want to have good strength, when we are doing a class 2 or a class 1, there I would suggest at least we must go for a microhybrid composite. A micro hybrid composite is the least minimum composite that you need to keep in your clinic, but still a nano hybrid is still better composite. Nanofill is still even better. So you have a mixture of nano hybrid and nanofills today in the market. So in this case, I have used a micro hybrid composite, a nano hybrid composite, wherein you can see the silver amalgam restoration has been replaced with a composite restoration. And this gives us amazing, beautiful aesthetic result. As you can see, we've got a great contour, we've got great anatomy, and we have maintained the cuspal inclinations. So such results is only possible if we land up investing in such kind of composites. However, when we are in the anterior zone, when we are in the aesthetic zone, what lands up happening is if we use only a micro hybrid composite, then we lack in the aesthetics. By that, I mean not your shade, but we lack in the shine, we lack in the luster. Now, any composite restoration, for it to last longer, you need to have that smooth polish, you need to have the shine, you need to have the gloss, especially at the margins, so that they don't land up failing or discoloring for a very, very long time. So like in this case, we have a 10-year-old boy who comes with a fractured central incisor. And we do this is the pre-op smile. Now we do the restoration completely. As you can see, we've been able to manage to get the translucency, we managed to get the mamelons, and at the same time, you'll see the polish is fantastic. The texture is fantastic. Now this is only and only possible if we use at least a nano hybrid composite. All right, you'll see the smile, it looks amazing. The child is going to be living with this composite for at least more than 5 to 7 years now, minimum. That's minimum I'm talking about, without having to worry about fracture or chipping or any polishing problems. So you can see we've maintained the mamelons, we've maintained the surface anatomy. In this also, it's very much visible. Now, this is only possible if we go ahead and buy a nano hybrid composite and do the final restoration with a nano hybrid composite. Now, whether it is an posterior restoration or an anterior restoration, a very important part of this composites is your shade matching, your shade selection. Now, any patient that enters the clinic does not care which company you're using, does not care what type of material you're using. They won't even know if you're using GSC. They do not care. What they care about is the shade should match. कलर सही लग रहा है ना, बस जब कोई भी पेशेंट आपके क्लिनिक में एंटर करता है, at the end what matters most to the patient is that the shade should match. Now that is where all of us, all our clinicians, we land up spending most of our time in selecting the right shade. Our whole goal, especially when we are doing anterior restorations, goes in choosing the right shade, whether it is A2, whether it is A1, whether it is A3. And as a thumb rule, I think we all land up using only A2. Why? Because we believe everybody lands up in the A2 range, but that is not so. Now, all these cases have been done by direct anterior restoration, direct composite restorations. All of them, they look flawless because there is a lot of time which has been spent behind choosing the right shade and the right layering protocol. Now, every patient that comes in our clinic does not have a single shade. They have multiple shades, exactly ranging from A1 to D4. So which shade is the right shade? That is where we have to be perfectly right. Okay. Now, to accommodate that, to make sure we give that perfect aesthetic result to every patient that leaves our clinic should be happy with the perfect smile. All clinicians have to keep a lot of inventory in the clinic. You have to keep opaque shades, you need to keep universal shades, you need to keep body shades, you need to keep the enamel shades, you need to keep nano hybrids, micro hybrids. The inventory just does not end. Unfortunately, for some, composites may not be a very, very important part of dentistry. For some, implant dentistry is more important. But like me, who likes to do a lot of composite restoration, aesthetic restoration, I would love to buy whatever is available in the market so that I give amazing results. So at the same time, when we land up buying so many composite syringes, our cost also increases, our expense also increases. And then we believe, oh my God, now they're going to expire. Now, how am I going to use it everywhere? That also becomes a very important part of dentistry investment. So some people would like to invest more in implants rather than composites, and I don't think that is the wrong way to go about, because some people are interested more in the surgical aspect. So then what do we do? Is it really necessary to have such a big inventory? What if I tell you that today's world, it is possible to do any composite restoration with just one syringe? No A1s, no A2s, no A3s, just one universal shade which works for all. You think that the dentistry has advanced so much that we can do that, or it is possible to do a restoration with just one single shade? A shade which matches to all the shade, a shade which blends with all the shades, whether it is in the red range or in the yellow range or in the brown range. Imagine dentistry advancing at such a stage wherein we don't need to do any shade selection. Is it really possible? So coming to the $1 million question of today, single shade restorations, truth or gimmick? To clear your confusion, the answer is yes. Yes, it is possible to go ahead and do your restorations with a single shade. Yes, it is 100% possible. To clear your doubt, we have this one amazing product today in the market, which is Charisma Diamond 1. The one means one for all. You can use just one single restoration shade for all your restorations. Can you believe it? No choosing your shades, no A1s, no A2s, no A3s, just Charisma Diamond 1. Wow, I think that is an amazing advancement in dentistry. So let's see how it works. It is a nano hybrid composite. That means we are not worried about the strength because the filler particles are extremely nano in size. There are a lot of filler particles, so we have extremely high possibility of polishing, high luster, high shine. So we can use it in posterior restorations also, as well as an anterior restoration. As you can see, we have flawless, seamless margins. We have amazing aesthetics even in the anterior restorations. So dentistry has come to such a stage today wherein we get a material which is suitable for all types of cavities. So the best part about Charisma Diamond 1 is that it has an amazing fluorescence also. Now, what is fluorescence? We all know that all teeth have the certain types of fluorescence present in every area. So this fluorescence lets it give the lifelike appearance. The light which reflects, or when the light is depicted, it slightly glows. That kind of fluorescence is required. If you have a material, a restorative material, which lacks fluorescence, then the material or the restoration looks dull. It looks very artificial. It has to have that fluorescence to match the fluorescence of the tooth. So this Charisma Diamond 1 has the same matching fluorescence to the tooth. So thus it looks very lifelike. It doesn't look unnatural. The most important quality of Charisma Diamond 1 is the chameleon effect. Now, what exactly is chameleon effect? Chameleon effect means, as we all know, chameleon is a reptile who or which, whenever it touches to any kind of an object, whether it is a twig, whether it is a tree, it, as soon as it touches that object, it just takes up the color and adapts to that object in such a way that it completely camouflages itself in the surrounding, so that it is completely invisible to protect itself, right? Similar to this chameleon effect, our composite restoration, that is Charisma Diamond 1, has a similar chameleon effect, which is known as a color adaptation potential. this material, whether it is put in an A1 restoration, A1 tooth, A2 tooth, C2 tooth, the material adapts to this surrounding color and seamlessly blends in with the tooth. So what did they do? They did a study. They created discs of A2 shade, C2 shade, and many more shades. And in the center, they placed this composite restoration and it cured it. Now, once they cured it, as you can see, the restoration is completely invisible. It merges with this disc in such a way that the restoration is not visible. Not only the core, not only the center merges completely, but even the margins become seamless. They become invisible to you. Thus, the restoration has a chameleon effect. As you can see, even in this tooth, there is a cervical restoration to be done. We have used a Charisma Diamond one, not only the core, as I said, however, even the margins have completely adapted itself to the environment. Now, that is a very, very good plus point of this material, because even though sometimes we land up choosing the right shade of any restorative material that we are using, we still have the margin which looks very, very prominent. Even if it is an A2, the margin also should merge. This property of this material, which is known as the adaptive light matching, means that whether you use your restoration in an A1 tooth or a D4 tooth, that means it is going to match to your all Vita shade guides. My God, what a material, right? Imagine you have only one syringe, you can match to all restorations. What an advancement in dentistry. I don't think we would ever think before that, no need of layering, no need to choose the right shape. Just place this composite and you're done and dusted with. So what did they do? How did they prove it? So they did again a small experiment with this Charisma Diamond one. So they took Typhodon teeth starting from A1 shade to D4 shade, and they created class 1 cavities in all of these with a 2 mm depth, a standard depth, so that there is no variation in any of the results. And they placed the Charisma Diamond 1 series in the center of all the teeth, and they light cured it. And as you can see that in every tooth, you see there is a flawless restoration which has been done, ranging from A1 to D4, and the margins are also completely seamless. So they came up, or dentistry has come up with a product which is now able to blend into any color. Naturally blend into, it just does not look that it is visible. So is it really possible? How is it possible? First of all, to think of it, we never knew even if it is possible. Now it is possible, but how is it possible? How does it work? How come all this while we were just worried about getting the right shade, and now we are getting a material which is just blending in perfectly? How is it possible? To understand that, first I need to explain to you how does color work. Okay, how do we see the colors in our usual life? Okay, so when a material is green in color, for example, this leaf, why does it look green to us? Now, visible light, it has the entire spectrum of colors. Okay, we all know Bioclear. All right. Now, when light falls on any particular color, okay, for example, in this slide, you will see it's a leaf. So on this leaf, it is a green color. So when light falls on this green color, the other colors, they all get absorbed by the object, and what gets reflected is only green color light. So what is visible to us is only green color, and thus the object looks green to us or appears green to us. Now, if the same light will fall on a red object, all other colors will get absorbed besides red color, and red color gets reflected, and that material now or an object looks red to us. So this is how color works. This is how we can see colors, or we can perceive colors. Now, when we talk about a tooth, okay, it actually ranges from the red to the yellow range. Okay, but when we look at it, the eyes perceive it as almost in the white shade. because visible light, it has actually white color. So it only looks white. So when reflection happens, we look at it as white. But however, we have so many different shades because every like A1 or A2 has a different amount of red in it, different amount of yellow in it. So if the tooth is A3 shade, the amount of yellowness or the redness will be more. So if the redness is slightly more or the brownishness is more, so that color gets reflected more and the tooth appears A3 to us. The tooth appears A3 to us. Now to match to these so many shades, so many ranges of shades, traditional composites. How many ranges we have? Right from A1 to D4. So traditional composites, they had certain pigments which were added to it to match these shades. They had certain red pigments, yellow pigments, brown pigments. So they would get the correct shade. To get the correct A1, they had to add a certain amount of redness to it. To get the correct amount of A4 shade, they had to add a certain amount of brownishness or redness to it. Thus, we had a variety of ranges of colors available in the market. Now, to get this right shade also is not an easy task. Thus, if you will see, there was no standardization in all the companies when it comes to any shade. So if I choose an A2 shade of 3M company or Kulzer company or Shofu or Tetrick, all A2s will not be standard. You will have slight difference in the A2 of 3M or Shofu or Kulzer. Either the translucency is more, either yellowness is more. Something will definitely be different because these pigments were physically added and every company adds on to it on their own basis. So we have a range of materials available depending upon the amount of pigment that has been added. So what is different in this composite? How is it possible that it can match to all the shades? Do they have this pigmentation added? What is it that is added that makes it so unique? So there are two most important things which is there because of which this product is slightly different. First and foremost, the refractive index of the filler particles which is added in this material. The filler particles, the refractive index of the polymer matrix also is adjusted in such a way it has extremely high translucency. Now, what does translucency mean? Translucency means it neither completely absorbs or not completely reflects. Part of it is absorbed, part of it is reflected, and part of it gets even passed through. So that translucency, because of that translucency, what happens when light falls onto it, most of it gets reflected by which in the environment it is present. So the filler particles, if it is present in an A1 environment, light gets mostly passed through to it and it gets reflected by the border by which it is surrounded, and it gets reflected, and that color now gets appeared or gets visible to us. So for example, this material is in an A1 environment, then light will get reflected with the A1 shade, and what is visible to us is the A1 shade because of the high translucency of this material. Now, what if this translucency is way too much? So everything in the center will look gray and only the borders will look A1. So that only the center also does not look gray, this filler particles, the second most important point, are optimized in such a way that they themselves will reflect red or yellow pigmentation. They have no added pigmentation. They have no added color to it. But they are optimized in such a way that when light falls onto it and gets reflected back by the filler particles, the material will appear tooth-like because the red and the tooth follows in the red to the yellow range. So the center also looks tooth-like, and the borders now reflect the color of the tooth with which in it is added. Okay, to explain this better, I will show you a diagram. Now, as you can see in the top diagram, visible light is falling, everything else is getting absorbed, only red light is getting reflected. So object is red in color. If the material is black, then all the light gets absorbed because black does not reflect any color. However, if the object is white, like our tooth, okay, now, and so all the light gets completely reflected so that the object now looks white to us. Now, imagine a restoration which is completely translucent, which is done in the center of this area. Imagine all this light falling on the restoration, through the restoration, and then the entire reflection happening. So what is happening basically? Light is falling on a white object and entire light is getting reflected. So this is the entire theory behind how this material is having an adaptive light matching. To explain it to you even better, I will show you a diagram. Now this yellow border, imagine this is the tooth, which is, for example, A2 shape. Okay, so what happens is we have small nano sized particles and slightly bigger sized particles, because this is a nano hybrid composite. So what happens when light falls onto it? Most of the light will pass through it and fall onto the tooth, get reflected, and perceive the tooth. The eyes will perceive it as the same shade of the tooth, in which in this case we are assuming is A2. Most of the light will pass through and get reflected by the tooth and visible and appear to us as A2 shade. What about the light which gets reflected through these filler particles? So whatever gets reflected, that is your blue arrows, your yellow arrows, and your red arrows. What will happen to that? Like I said, these filler particles are optimized in such a way that they will reflect a tooth color only. Again, ranging in the red to the yellow range. So when the light gets reflected from these also, the restoration appears tooth-like. And internally, there is a lot of light scattering. See, when light falls on an object, it doesn't just go in one different direction, it goes in multiple directions. So internally, there is a lot of light scattering. So when it falls over here, it goes here. When the light falls on the tooth, it goes here. So internally, when all this light scattering happens, eventually the material looks like the shade of the surrounding tooth. So this amazing technology, which has been recently incorporated in dentistry, gives us a lot of advantage of making sure that we get the right shade without doing too much of thinking or doing a lot of spending too much time in choosing the right shade. Now, like I said, all the studies were done in 2 mm thickness. So what will happen when the thickness increases? Because naturally, every patient who enters the clinic is not just going to have a 2 mm thickness cavity. Some may have 4 mm, some may have wider cavities, some may have larger cavities. So what happens to this material? Does it mean if the thickness increases, it will still remain that translucent and the grayness will appear? No. As and when the thickness increases, the opacity of the material also increases. Naturally, there are more filler particles which are being added. So the opacity increases, the chromaticity increases. So naturally, the tooth now or the restoration now doesn't look translucent. It looks like a solid block structure which has been placed into the restoration, into the cavity. So if we have a small cavity, like a simple class 1, which is surrounded by walls on all sides, what will happen? Naturally, because of the translucency of these filler particles, the borders will look like the shade of the tooth, which is the A2 shade, A2 shade, whatever it is. And the center, because of the internal light scattering, also will look the same color. However, what if the cavity is slightly bigger, like a class 2 restoration, like a big class 2 restoration, where there is no wall to give any reflection? See, how does it work? When there is some wall present anywhere, when light gets reflected from there, and then that material or the color is shown, right? But now here, there is no wall only. So what color will it show? Will it show the color of the environment? What color will it show? So to explain this to you, here at the borders, where there are good wall present, naturally, the restoration will look the same shade as the shade of the tooth because of the reflection and translucency of the material. But here, when there is no wall present for reflection, the light will internally light scattering will happen. Now, like I said, these filler particles are optimized in such a way that they will reflect red to yellow range. So now this part also will look tooth-like. Yes, this part may be slightly more translucent than this part, slightly, not completely, but at the same time it will look completely tooth colored, and then there is a lot of internal light scattering, internal light reflection which happens, which makes it blend with the entire restoration. So in the posterior region, when we are not worried too much about getting the right shade, or by that I would say getting the right amount of opacity, we can use this material in any posterior restoration, whether it is a class 1, whether it is a class 2, because this minor translucency is not even going to be visible. So in posterior restorations, this kind of product is actually a good product because we don't have to worry about getting the right shade. So we have a lot of advantages. This material getting into the market gives us a lot of advantages because now we can use it anywhere and everywhere, right? To begin with, we will never go wrong with the shade. I know we have a lot of patients who come with C4 shades, D4 shade, older patients who's, they've got a lot of wear because the dentine is showing through. In that areas also, this composite will work wonders. So we don't have to worry about choosing this right shade. Like I said, it is a nano hybrid composite. So it has extremely high strength. At the same time, since it has nano filler particles also, the aesthetics are extremely good. The polish is extremely good. The luster is also very good. So not only can we use in posterior restoration, we can also use this product in anterior restorations. And one amazing property about this tooth is that it does not slump. But it does not slump by meaning what? There are so many materials which are in the market. When you remove them, okay, when you dispense them and you place it onto the tooth, they do not tend to maintain itself. They tend to sloop down. Some of them tend to just completely fall down. So the carving that you have done, the anatomy that you have created, like carving the lobes that you have created, does not maintain itself. So then this product does not do that. This product maintains the perfect stickiness, the perfect amount of rigidity, the perfect amount of flexibility that is required to adapt the composite onto the tooth, and maintains these beautiful aesthetics which are possible with this composite. So you get a beautiful aesthetic result at the end. So all in all, this product saves a lot of time because we don't have to worry about shade selection anymore. We don't have to worry about whether the tooth is A1 or D4. We just have to go ahead and place this composite material in the tooth and we get an amazing result. It is cost effective because we don't land up buying 25 shades. We just buy one shade. You don't have to land up investing in 5 shades. So it is extremely cost effective, one syringe for all. And naturally, the quality is awesome because it is a nano hybrid composite. It has high aesthetics. It has high, high strength. So it can be used anywhere and everywhere. So there is no doubt about the quality of this product. So we've got a product which has all the qualities that we have been looking for all this while. So I think it is a good inventory. It is a good product to have in your dentistry today. Now, such a product which has come into the market, so does it mean that we can use it in all cases? Does it mean I can use it in all types of class 1s, all types of class 2s, anterior restorations? Let us see. I would say any product that is in the market comes with its certain limitation. Okay, anything that comes into the market comes with its certain limitations. Now, as we all know, this material is slightly translucent because it has to have this amazing adaptive, shade matching technology. So what happens here is when we are in a posterior area where, it's a class 1 situation or it's a wide class 2 situation, when there are enough walls all around to surround it, when the tooth is going to blend well, yes, you can use it. For all posterior restorations, go ahead, use it bindas, koi tension wali baat nahi. But if you are slightly in a more aesthetic zone, when you are in a zone where you know that there may be slight more aesthetics required, like a class 4 situation or a class 3 situation, when there is a through and through cavity, there this material may look more translucent. So you may have to use an added shade with it, so that you get the perfect aesthetic results. But at the same time, you may not need all shades to have that perfect match. Again, your inventory definitely reduces, but at the same time, you have at least one opaque shade to get the right aesthetics. Now, as and when I talk about it, as and when my lecture proceeds, you will understand what I'm talking about in anteriors, how to go about it, how to use this composite in the anterior restorations also, and how it is advantageous to us. Okay, so where all can we use it carefree? Class 1 restorations, very simple. When there is enough wall all around it, there's enough wall, there is enough type of walls present for light to reflect, for light to give in that color. Okay, yes, class 2s, MOD, nothing to worry about. Mesials and distals are going to be covered. Buccal wall is present, lingual wall is present. Even if there is a slight buccal extension, you have enough walls present around so that light can reflect through this and you get the right shade. Small class 3s, where you have sufficient palatal wall present, so you don't have to worry about small class 5s. But yes, if you are in an extremely aesthetic zone, when there is a lot of tooth structure loss, when you know that there won't be sufficient tooth structure for it to be giving it light, giving it a tooth structure to reflect that light and produce that shade, yes, there you may have certain limitations. So how do we go about with the restoration protocol? Now, any composite restoration has the same clinical protocol. Whether I am using a nano hybrid, whether I'm using a micro hybrid, whether I'm using Charisma Diamond 1, Smart, whatever I'm doing, composite clinical protocol remains the same. Any clinical protocol for composite remains the same, because ultimately it is a composite material which requires a certain standardization protocol, right? So the protocol that I follow is as follows. To begin with, we need to go ahead and do isolation. Now, isolation is a very, very, very important aspect of composite dentistry to get you the right results, to get you the right to get you the perfect long-lasting results to be in the right terms. Now, when we talk about isolation, I'm going to talk very briefly about isolation. I'm going to slightly emphasize on isolation over here. I know we all have been using cotton rolls in our daily practice. I think cotton rolls is maximum present in our clinic. We have cellulose wafers. We have our saliva ejectors, that means our suction. I know there used to be a time when we used to do silver restorations, lower posterior silver restorations without suction. I don't know how we've managed today. Suction is a big, big, big boon in dentistry. Retraction cords. But as we all know, if we want 100% results, if we want those perfect results, what are we looking at? Yes, we need to go ahead and invest in a rubber dam. I know you all know this answer. I know everybody, all the clinicians present today, at the back of their mind, to know that we have to do rubber dam isolation. Now, most of you, or most of us rather, right? Most of you, we land up doing composite restorations without using a rubber dam. Yes, I know it. We all believe that, ho jata hai, no problem, cotton rolls hai, suction hai, why to use a rubber dam? Now, is it a fact or a myth that composite restorations work better with a rubber dam or without a rubber dam? It is a fact that composite restorations work better with a rubber dam. Definitely your results, your composite will be more long lasting. They will have more successful results. There will be less micro leakage. So all these things really, really matter. Moisture control is the most important thing in composite restorations, because all of us have been in this situation. Tell me if you're not, okay? I'm sure everybody has been in this situation at least once in their lifetime, wherein we are working in a lower molar region, okay? Especially if it's a 6 or a 7, we are doing a class 2 restoration. Now, as a thumb rule, all our assistants are, as always, very malnourished. They're very thin, They never have any food. I don't know why. Okay, I'm just joking. They're really malnourished. Okay, and you are now working in the posterior zone. Okay, in the lower posterior zone, you placed cotton roll in the buccal circles. You placed cotton roll in the lingual circles. Now our assistant बेचारी has only 2 hands. एक सक्शन जाता है मुंह के अंदर और एक हाथ से बेचारी निकाल रही है, डिस्पेंस कर रही है कॉम्पोस, और शी इज गिविंग यू सम ऑफ द अदर मटेरियल. Now in that whole entire process, of course we are clinician, we are looking here, we are looking there. Now we just turn और हम लोग कुछ उठाते हैं to place it in the mouth. Now in that process, there is a pool of saliva coming inside and it is trickling into your class 2 restoration. What happens? All of us, all clinicians, now we get agitated, we get irritated. What the hell? How the hell did this water droplet, how the hell does this saliva droplet enter my cavity? You give those big-eyed looks to your assistant. Assistant knows I am gone. My doctor now is going to fire the daylights out of me. How did we let her, that water go inside the cavity? Sometimes it is not under her control, right? It is just not possible. And now we don't know what to do. We are in the middle of a restoration. So what do? Very simple. We ask her to retract. We remove those 2 cotton rolls. We put the cotton roll back and continue our restoration. We just add her and we start placing the composite, right? That is our usual protocol. Who is going to go ahead and start the entire restoration from beginning? None of us. What will happen? We do the restoration. Okay. Now we know somewhere at the back of the mind, we've done something wrong. But the patient comes back with sensitivity. Whose fault is it? It's never our fault. We are never at fault. Who is at fault? Patient's tooth is at fault. Ma'am, आपका दांत ही खराब है, पहले से ही बहुत ही डीप था मैम, अभी आपको रूट कनाल करना ही पड़ेगा. किसका गलती है? It's never our fault. We are doctors. Can we ever be at fault? No. It is somewhere deep down, it is our fault. But we will not accept it because we wanted to just get done with the restoration. So we know that somewhere it is our fault, but no, we are not ready to accept it. Now to overcome these situations, now in the back of the mind, we are wondering, oh my God, I've done something, but it's okay. Yeah, we'll do a root canal. No worries, no problem. Everything will get solved. So yeah, now you will tell me, ma'am, the patient does not accept rubber dam, ma'am. It is very time consuming. How will we go ahead and do in a posterior restoration? Kitna time lagta hai? So many patients outside. Now tell me when we can convince a patient to do a full mouth implant surgery. Full mouth implant surgery, which is way more vast, which is way more extensive than a simple rubber dam placement. Do you think we can't convince a patient to place a rubber dam? Patients spend almost 2 hours sometimes, 3 hours sometimes at our clinic when we do full mouth surgeries. Can't we spend more, like 20 minutes for a restoration to place a rubber dam? I'm sure we can. Why are we not able to convince patients? Because we ourselves are not convinced. The day you get convinced that a rubber dam is necessary, where a rubber dam works for your composite restoration, then only you will be able to convince your patient. It is very normal. It is very normal for any patient or anybody in this entire world to think, अगर ये काम करेगा तो मैं किसी को भी convince कर सकता हूँ कि ये काम करेगा, right? So first you convince yourself that a rubber dam works. Only if you convince yourself, you will be able to convince your patient. And of course, anything that you try new requires practice. Nobody learns from the beginning and come. Okay, I'm sure your first implant mustn't be the smoothest of all your implants. Your first root canal mustn't be as smooth as what you can do today. So similarly, it takes practice for you to adapt to any new thing that you are using. So practice it, and then eventually you yourself will stop using that cotton roll kind of isolation and will start depending on rubber dam to get that amazing results. And once you get used to this, you will not be able to go back. Trust me. So rubber dam isolation is a must. The next step that you need to do during your composite restoration is excavation. I like to do my excavations after my isolation so that the prepared cavity does not get contaminated even by the slightest amount of saliva or any other bacterial contamination. So once you do your isolation, do your excavation with whatever burr you are comfortable with so that you can access the cavity, and then you finish your excavation. The next step is pulp protection. Now we all know that there are different types of cavity depths that are going to come to you. Everybody is not going to come with a standardized depth. So you need to do pulp protection to protect the tooth from future thermal damage. So we have a lot of materials available in the market like GIC, RMGIC, MTA, XYZ. Now, depending upon the depth of the cavity, you choose the right material for the pulp protection. After which you go ahead and do your etching and bonding protocol. Naturally, we have to etch the tooth, we have to bond the tooth so that this composite restoration now gets completely accommodated in your tooth. So the protocol that I follow is I etch the enamel for 20 seconds, I etch the dentine for 10 seconds, and thoroughly you wash it. After you wash it, you air dry it. You don't completely dry it. You have to leave it slightly moist dry. Now here, do I use a 3-way syringe? No, I avoid using a 3-way syringe because there can be contamination from the 3-way syringe oils also. Try to use a chip blower, or you use moist tissue paper, or you use a gauze. Use a gauze to dry your cavity preparation so that it remains moist dry. After which you apply a bonding agent. It can be either 5th generation or all-in-one, whatever you prefer. Slightly air dried, remove all the excess and light cure it for 20 seconds. This is my basic protocol for composite restorations, whether it is an anterior restoration or a posterior restoration. Now, naturally, depending upon the depth of the cavity, my type of etching and bonding differs. If I am in a very shallow cavity, wherein I probably not even done pulp protection, therein I etch the dentine as well as the enamel and wash it and use a 5th generation bond. But if I am in a slightly deeper cavity where I am worried that maybe the etchant can cause more sensitivity issues to the patient, I will only selectively etch the enamel, wash it, then use a 7th generation bond so that we can go ahead and do your restoration. However, if you're very, very scared that the patient may have extreme sensitivity, even if a drop of etchant falls into the tooth, then you can directly use a 7th generation bond also. Okay, so there are different types of etching techniques depending upon the depth of your cavity preparation. After your etching and bonding, the next step is placing your matrices and wedges. Now, naturally, this is a very, very important part of your clinical protocol. Whether if you're doing a class 2 or a class 4 or a class 3, you need your matrix bands, you do need your wedges so that you get your good proximal contours, you get a good restoration, you don't land up getting the 2 teeth stuck to each other. Now, not talking too much about it, I'm going to just talk about the materials which are available in the market. We all know we have Toffelmire bands, we have ivory number 8, we have ivory number 1, we have T bands, a lot of bands which are available in the market. But if you will see, all these types were traditional types of matrix bands which are available. They are all meant for silver restorations. They were straight, they were extremely rigid, they were meant for metallic restorations. So what I would suggest you to invest in is these contoured matrices. We have pre-contoured matrices, which are metallic, which are slightly more flexible. All right, they have the same shape as we like to have in a posterior tooth, like a proximal shape. Okay, there are different sizes and shapes available along with a separator ring. Okay, there are many companies available like Palodent, we have Garrison, we have Philadent, we have Pagodrix, Bioclear, and lots more many. Basic thing is that we must invest in a good sectional matrix system so that we get the correct contour, we get the correct class 2 proximal box that we are looking for. Okay, and along with this, not only the band, but the separator ring that comes along with it is also extremely important. Why is this ring important? Now, this ring will help to hold this band in place. As we all know, composite is not very rigid. It will just, as where you adapt it, it is just going to stay there. If you move the band, the composite will move along with it. So we need a good adaptation of this composite to the band along with the tooth. So we need something to keep it stable. So this ring will now keep the band in its place along with wedges. So it's very important for us to choose the right matrix system. After we've placed our bands, wedges, and rings, the next protocol is your layering protocol. Now, this is where you land up doing different techniques. You land up doing using a lot of other products, or you land up doing your own techniques so that you get the best results. I'm going to talk about in the posterior region. There are two techniques, are the three techniques like oblique layering, cuspal layering, and bulk and body layering, in which you can do different things and get the right shade. So in the oblique layering technique, what does it say? You have a base layer, that is your pulp protection material. Now you layer the composite in a slanting manner, one above the other. Okay, this will reduce your polymerization shrinkages also, polymerization shrinkage stresses also. Okay, and the lower layers, what you land up doing is you land up using a slightly opaque shade, a dentine shade, so that it matches to the tooth. And the top layer, you use a universal shade so that the ultimate shade now is visible to you. You try to match the shade so that the tooth now looks absolutely aesthetic. Okay, so the bottom layers you put a dentine shade, and the top layers you put a universal shade. The next technique is, I'm going to show you with a case. All right, as in this case, we have a cavity class 1 restoration. We have to do, we go ahead and do the isolation, we excavate it, we selective etch it because it is a deep restoration, apply the 7th generation bond. Now we fill the base with the opaque shade. Okay, and we want to get the best aesthetics out of this tooth. Now, just because it is a posterior tooth doesn't mean we want good aesthetics. We want to have at least decent aesthetics. For an A1 tooth, I can't directly use a C4 shade, right? It's going to look very weird. So the bottommost layer that we are going to add is going to be a opaque shade. As you can see, it's nice and opaque. And now the top layer I add with a universal shade. Okay, a shade which will blend to universal shade. By that I don't mean Charisma Diamond 1. Now, in this case, I'm talking about the body shades that are available in the market. Okay, A1 shade, A2 shade, A3 shade, whatever, depending upon the shade of the tooth. Okay, now we place the composites cusp by cusp so that we have less polymerization shrinkage. We build one cusp, second cusp, third, fourth, and fifth, and we've got a good anatomy. Add in some tints for aesthetics, and this is our final result. Now, as you can see, no matter how much good shade selection we have done, borders are still visible. Like, it is still visible. Yes, part of it is because this is the immediate post-operative result. This is the immediate post-operative. The tooth is slightly dehydrated. So after rehydration, they may be little lesser visible. But yes, even after we try to do good shade selection, good shade matching, there are times the restoration looks slightly different from your surrounding tooth. So when we have a product like Charisma Diamond 1 series, whether you use your bulk and body protocol, whether you use your opaque layering, your oblique layering technique, whether you use your cuspal layering technique, you need not go for two shades. You need not go for first dentine shade and then enamel shade, or dentine shade or universal shade. All you need to do is just use this one syringe, place it in the bottom layers, place it in your top layers, and you get the aesthetic results. You don't have to worry about shade selection. You just need to place this one composite. Yes, but you have to make sure it is only 2 mm in thickness. Whether it is your deep cavity or a thick, big cavity, only 2 mm, not more than 2 mm, because this material works that way. And then you go ahead and do your restoration. So no choosing the right shade, no using 2 shades, 3 shades to get the right shade. Okay, this is the beauty of the product. That was for posteriors. Now, when it comes to anteriors, we have a lot of stratification techniques. Now, for years altogether, we've been trying to master this layering technique. We've been trying to master a technique which can give us flawless results, like histological layering technique. Now, what does histological layering technique say? Histological layering technique says, if a part of dentine is missing, you replace it with dentine shade. If a part of dentine and middle part of the tooth is missing, you replace it with dentine as well as your universal shade. If a part of only enamel is missing, you replace it with enamel shade. So, in short, you need to have all types of shades available in your clinic. You need to have a dentine shade, you need to have a universal shade, you need to have a enamel shade, so that you can match to the tooth translucency, opacity, fluorescence, XYZ. Okay. Another technique is monoshade layering technique, which this product will be able to give us, wherein we just use a single shade and the tooth completely blends with the restoration. I'm going to talk more about it in detail later on. Another technique is natural layering technique, which states that you layer your tooth from inside to outside with different dentine shades. You start with a high chromacity dentine shade in the inner layer, then you go slowly to the layer lesser chromaticity or opacity, and eventually you layer it with enamel shade. Then you have a style Italiano technique, which has dentine and enamel only. And there are many more techniques which people are coming up with their own techniques. You may have your own recipe. I may have my own recipe. So anterior composites, since years altogether, we have been trying to master to get the right shade, the right aesthetics by these layering techniques. Now, does it mean that I can use this Charisma Diamond one without thinking twice, without or eliminating all these layering techniques? No. It does not mean that. Like I said, this product comes with little limitations. In your anterior zone, when there is no walls present to reflect light, we may have to go for a layering protocol. But at the same time, we need not to have so much inventory in our clinic. We need not have so many shades. We need not have dentine shades, body shades, as well as enamel shades. We need not have separate enamel shades. We might just need 2 shades so that the entire restoration looks aesthetic. This I am going to talk about in my future, my coming up slides, where I will show you the cases and how to go about it. So you will get a better, clearer picture how to use this product in anterior restorations also without worrying about thinking about the right shade. All right. Okay. Sorry. So after layering, whether it is an anterior restoration or a posterior restoration, we have to do our finishing and polishing. So coming to my end of the clinical protocol. All right. Next step is your finishing and polishing. So any high points, any excess, anything that we remove has to be done either with your stones or your finishing burrs. You have those red ring finishing burrs. It can be a flame-shaped burr or a tapered burr, so that you land up removing your any excess composite. The composite has to blend with the tooth without any catches. Okay, when you move your probe at the margins from the composite to the tooth or your tooth to the composite, you should not get stuck. Your probe should not get stuck anywhere. Okay, so you have to remove all the excess, which I do with the help of my stones and finishing burrs. Okay, my primary shape of the tooth also I get with the help of these burrs. Okay, then getting your line angles right, getting your primary anatomy, that is your triangular shape, adjusting your mesiodistal angle or your mesial angle or your distal angle, your corners, embrasures. All this I adjust with the help of discs. Now, when we do any posterior restoration also, okay, when we adapt the band to the tooth, there is an excess which comes out on the lingual wall as well as buccal wall. So that needs to be polished and removed away, which I do with the help of these discs. Depending upon how much needs to be removed, I use the series of discs right from the highest abrasive to the least abrasive, so that the shine and luster increases. Even in the anteriors, getting the line angles right, getting the shape right is done with the help of discs. The next step after this is to get your secondary anatomy. By secondary anatomy, I mean getting the surface shape right. Like every front natural anterior tooth that is not only flat. You may have certain ridges, you may have certain depressions. Okay, so all this I create with red ring burrs. We created with red ring burrs. In a posterior tooth, okay, if after you've adjusted your high point, sometimes you may feel no, some cusp may require some more inclination. That minor tweaking here and there you do with your red ring burrs. Okay, slightly move and adjust your composites with your red ring burrs. After you got your secondary anatomy, you have got your basic shape, you've got your basic line angles, everything is now in place. Now you go ahead and start polishing your tooth. This was your finishing protocol. For your polishing, you start with rubber cups. Now, rubber cups are extremely harsh, okay? They do not abrade themselves as much as the composite gets abraded when you are doing polishing. So what do? You use this rubber cup in such a way that you don't put too much pressure, okay? You do not put pressure on the restoration and you land up removing or giving the composite too much shine, okay? You do that with putting less pressure. You move the cup from the composite to the tooth in a lesser pressure manner. After which we use soft flex spirals. These soft flex spirals are extremely amazing, okay? They get reduced themselves and the composite also gets reduced in such a way that there is a high shine and high luster. So you can use it with good strength, good pressure also. Nothing to worry about because you get good, nice shine, good luster. So you get nice polish, you get a nice shine. And ultimately, to get the perfect high gloss, you need to use a cotton buff. Now, as you can see in this picture, okay, the threads of this buff are completely gone. Naturally, I need to buy a new one. Now, why does this happen? Is because if any water goes into the cotton, when you see any cotton, normal cotton also, when you put water into it and if you roll it, it will just open up. Okay, so when you do cotton buff polishing, it has to be completely dry polishing, swift movements, so that you get that high gloss and high luster. Okay, so this is my basic clinical protocol which I follow for any composite restoration, whether it is an anterior restoration or it is a posterior restoration. Okay, but how do we use this product? How do we use this product in different types of cases? When it is a class 1, how do I go about it with it? When it is a class 2, how do I go about with it? When it is an anterior restoration, how do I go about with it? So I'm going to show cases so that you get a better clarity of how to go about with the clinical protocol, the same clinical protocol, of course, but how do I use this product with the same clinical protocol? Okay, so class 1 situation, as you can see, this is a maxillary arch quadrant wherein 4, 5, 6, 7 all are involved, all are carious. Okay, so my first step is isolation. Like I said, rubber dam isolation is a must. After which you go ahead and do your excavation. Okay, as you can see, 7 here is slightly deep, 4 and 5 are not very deep, just about, and 6 is medium deep. Okay, so here I have done pulp protection. In the next step, however, you will not be able to see because it is the angle of my picture is not very good. Okay, you go ahead and do your etching protocol. As you can see in the shallow cavities, we've done total etch protocol, and in the deeper areas, we've gone ahead and done only selective etch protocol. Then you use your bonds, okay, air dry, light cure it, and now you do your layering. Now, like I said, you can use any of the techniques. You can go for oblique layering, you can go for cuspal layering, whatever you wish. But the key here is I am just using the Charisma Diamond 1. I pick up the Charisma Diamond 1, did not worry about what shade of the tooth is, what I need to go for dentine shade, what universal shade, nothing. I just pick up the Charisma Diamond 1 and I start layering. Here I have done the cuspal layering technique. As you can see, I build up the buccal cusps, one palatal cusp, buccal cusp, slightly of the wall, XYZ. And now I just go ahead and light cure. I don't think about which shade is going to match. I don't care about the opacity. I don't care about the translucency. I'm just going and placing this composite blindly. Okay. And with this same technique, cusp by cusp, we finish the buildup of the tooth. Now, as before I finish my polishing, already you can see that the margins are seamless. The restoration is completely matching to the tooth. My anatomy is maintained. All right. So already I'm happy with this product. I'm already happy with my results. Okay. Then this is my pre-polish. Without polishing, after I remove the rubber dam, this is how it looks. After adjusting the high points, after polishing, this is how it looks. It's just beautiful. You just look at the results, even in a large, big restoration. The margins are seamless. You can maintain your anatomy, your carving, which is being given to the tooth. That is also maintained. This is another picture where it is a slightly higher chroma so that you can appreciate the results even more. So you get amazing results by just using a single shade. You've got polish, you've got luster, you've got shine, you've got strength. What else do you need in a product? So you have everything, even in a posterior restoration. Your posterior restorations also now look flawless. That was about class 1. How do we go about in a slightly bigger one? How do you go about in a class 2 situation? We have a cavity here in the distal aspect of a lower premolar. First step is isolation. Then it is excavation. Now, as you can see, most of the times when we start one tooth of a class 2, always the adjacent tooth is always involved. 99% of the time. So we go ahead and do the excavation of the adjacent tooth also. Now here, as you can see a brownish hue which is being depicted. Don't worry, that is not a cavity. It is just affected dentine. In the next picture, you will be able to appreciate better. There's no cavity which is present. There's no BK which is present. By cavity, I mean BK which is present. Okay. After which, we go ahead, etch it, bond it. And now I finish this one tiny restoration also. First, I finish 1 tooth. Again, what shade am I using over here? Don't care which technique I'm using. What shade am I using? Charisma Diamond 1. That's it. I'm just using this one composite. Don't know what shade of the tooth is. It's probably an A1. Don't know. Applying it blindly, light curing it. Now, the next step is your most important, your band, wedge, and rink. Okay, very, very important to get the right shape, proximal shape. Okay, you'll see I've done some pulp protection also because it was a deep restoration. And I go ahead, similarly, with either the oblique layering or the cuspal layering, you finish your restoration. Again, tooth, it looks very much tooth-like. It has nice margins. The restoration looks flawless. Anatomy is maintained, proximal wall is maintained, margins are maintained, everything looks fabulous. So in a class 2 also, where there's a big wall missing, you can see that there is, yes, minor translucency present, but most of it looks very, very natural. So in a class 1 or a class 2, even if it has a buccal extension or a lingual extension, I am sure this composite can be used in any of your posterior restorations without having to worry about it too much. Now coming to a class 3, can I use it in all classes? Okay. No, we may not be able to solely use this product in all types of classes. Okay, what do we realize when we have the class 3, which is a through and through class 3? That means there is no buccal wall, there is no parietal wall. Okay, so Dr. Janine, she did a small experiment, like a small study she did on an extracted tooth, where she created class 3s even on the mesial aspect and on the distal aspect. She excavated it and she gave bevels. Okay, so what she did is, on one side, that is your mesial or distal side, she placed an opaque shade first. Whatever opaque shade she thought was the right shade. For example, in this she used an A3 dentine shade. Okay, A3 dentine shade or an opaque dentine shade. Okay, placed it at the wall, like the palatal shell was created with this, or a palatal wall was created with this shade, over which she layered it with your Charisma Diamond 1. Okay, that was one side. The other side, what she did is, she only placed the Charisma Diamond 1. So what results did we get? What did we realize? We realized when we placed only Charisma Diamond 1, the entire restoration looks very translucent. Now, naturally, like I said, when this restoration does not have any wall to reflect light, this material looks tooth-like. Yes, it looks tooth-like. The color is red and yellow range only, even though there are no pigments added. Even though there are no pigments added, the color looks like a tooth. However, it is very translucent to match to the tooth. So to overcome this, what the technique was done was, as you can see in the mesial side, we added an opaque dentine shade first. So now what will happen? We add an opaque dentine shade, we add a translucent shade, that is your diamond 1. So when light falls now, it has an opaque shade behind, which will reflect the light from this wall. So now your dentine shades will get reflected towards your eyes. So what you can see now is a part of your wall, which is your tooth, which light is getting reflected, and part of the opaque dentine shade which is getting reflected, and a mixture of two which gives you a blended and nice natural restoration. So now to give you a gist, that means in the anterior region, if I have to use this composite, I just need to use the right dentine shade. Maybe just something which will match my tooth so that I get an opacity where the light can reflect, not pass through. Okay, because this diamond one is translucent. However, I need not go for 3-4 shades. I need not go for multiple dentine shades, just one dentine shade over which whether the tooth final result is A1, A2, A3, B2, B4, I just need to place Charisma Diamond 1. So when I place Charisma Diamond 1, what is happening on the buccal aspect? Light is getting reflected from the tooth itself, but on the palatal aspect, it gets reflected from the opaque shade that you have placed. So ultimately, the result is flawless. Okay. So this study which we have actually done in a tooth, okay, which I did on a patient. As you can see, we've done our isolation. Okay, now this distal aspect, you can see it is completely translucent because on the distal aspect we used only the Charisma Diamond 1 product. So what happened is you can see translucent restoration. However, on the mesial aspect, you can see the tooth has completely blended with the restoration because we first placed an opaque shade over which we placed a Charisma Diamond 1 shade. So here the margins are also completely blended and the tooth looks now, the restoration looks now completely blended with your tooth. Okay, so this is how you will manage your restorations when it comes to anterior teeth. Okay, so you need not have a wide range or wide inventory anymore for your anterior restorations also. You just need to have Charisma Diamond 1, which is standard, and different dentine shades. Okay, and in the posteriors, you don't even have to get your dentine shades, just Charisma Diamond 1. Now, how do we manage a class 4 situation? Most difficult case for anteriors. Okay. This is a pre-operative smile of a young patient. Okay, as you can see, I will not take too much of your time, just 5 more minutes more. All right, there is a diastema present along with a class 4. All right, this is the pre-op situation. You have a close-up view. You go ahead and do your isolation. You give your bevels, a very, very important aspect. You do your etching. Very important again, your bonding. Now you create your palatal shells. What shade will this be? Here I have used your Charisma Diamond 1 only. Okay, you can use your opaque dentine shade also. Okay, because ultimately light is going to get reflected from your opaque shade. Okay, but now what I have done over which the diamond 1, what I have done is I have placed an opaque dentine shade. In this case, I have used an A2 opaque dentine shade so that now when light gets reflected, this shade is now going to get reflected towards the visible eye. Okay, and now I have layered it with your diamond 1. I completed one tooth completely and then I completed the other tooth. All right. And after finishing and polishing, these are the results. I think it is amazing. The results have come out to be fabulous. You don't have to worry about getting the right shade in the final layer also, because this product is good translucency, as good as enamel. At the same time, it blends a chameleon effect. It has the color adaptation potential, and it's just covers your margins also seamlessly. So you've got a very good view, post-operative result. Patient is happy. I am happy. You don't have to worry about shade selection as much as I used to worry about before. Okay, so 2 shades, only dentine shade and Charisma Diamond 1, and you get the right result. So even in aesthetic cases, you can use this product flawlessly. Right? Another case of class 5, like I said, if it is a shallow class 5, you directly go ahead, place this composite restoration, composite material, give a good contour, do finishing and polishing, you get beautiful results. However, if it is a deep restoration to be done, then you may have to layer, otherwise the material will look slightly more translucent. Okay, I'm going to show you a few more cases. This is a lower mandibular, a lower molars, all right? Class 1 situation, go ahead, do your isolation, excavation, etching, and this is your final result. I'm sorry for the bad photography because there are a lot of scratches on the mirror. However, as you can see, the margins are seamless, the anatomy is maintained. Another case of class 1 composites, lower molar, you go ahead and do your restoration, beautiful anatomy maintained, beautiful flawless margins. Class 3 composites, okay. Now, as I already knew that when it is a through and through composite restoration to be done, when I have to use this product, I have to use an opaque shade, all right. However, if there is a class 3 even present in the distal aspect of the second central aesthetizer, but the buccal wall was intact, only the palatal was involved. So I directly went ahead and placed the diamond one on this side. However, over here, closer view, on the distal of 1-1, I used an opaque shade as well as the diamond one, and these are the results. I think they look really fabulous. The results are amazing with the polish. Okay, so only 2 shades again, and you get a good result. Yes, diastema closure. Can we use this product in diastema closure? Yes, we can use it. As you can see, in this case, patient has a space present between your central and lateral. You want to close up the space. Now, how do we use this product when it comes to diastema closure? You see in the close-up view, the diastema is not very big. All right, it is a very small diastema. Now, when there is a small diastema, you can just use this single diamond one shade and you get the good results. Yes, you will get certain translucency, but when this is a lower anterior case where aesthetics slightly can be compromised, you can go ahead and use this product without thinking to worry about whether the shade will match. Yes, it matches. You can see the polish is great. You can see the translucency is there, but it is very minor. It may not be visible at all in the lower anterior region. However, if you're doing an upper anterior, prefer to use an opaque shade first and then this diamond one product, so that that minor translucency also gets masked. Okay, so in a lower diastema also, or in a low diastema closures also, yes, this product can be used. Okay, a few more maxillary restorations. Upper molars, amazing anatomy maintained, margins are seamless. A little more, can you see the lower 7, which has a class 1 cavity? Again, you can see the minor small secondary anatomy also, which is maintained. So no slumping, anatomy is maintained, margins are flawless, good results with this product. Another case, you see good results. Again over here, lower 6 and 7 class 1 situation, good nice margins, you got nice anatomy. So all in all, this product is really going to change the way we look at shade selection, the way we start doing our composite restorations. So is there a paradigm shift in dentistry? Yes. With the advancement, with the advancement which is coming up in dentistry and in the world, okay, everywhere there is a lot of advancement, a lot of technology which is being built up. Who knew that there would be a product in which we don't have to worry about the right shade? Who knew that there will be a product which is going to blend with everything? Nobody knew that. Nobody thought of it also. So this composite definitely can be used in any posterior restoration. I know by now, I'm sure all of us are convinced that in my posterior restoration, mind what, yours also, you can use this product without thinking about it at all, without thinking about anything. Okay. However, yes, we cannot eliminate the fact that anterior restorations, yes, we still cannot eliminate layering, because we need to get the right shade, we need to get the right opacity, right translucency. So layering is still a must in anteriors, but at the same time, we need not invest in a big inventory. Our inventory now becomes slightly lesser, only 2 shades, your N-teen and your Diamond 1 series, and you get beautiful results without having to worry about getting the right shade. Like it can lead to even whatever, beautiful chameleon effect. Okay. To end this presentation, I would like to say, as dentists, we all are creator of smiles. Okay. We are beautiful, give smiles to the teeth, to the patients. And every smile has some story. I'm sure every patient that enters your clinic has something memorable that reminds you of the patient, okay? Not every patient will give you a good, happy ending. Yes, I know that. But every smile will have some memory which you will not forget, some good, some bad. So these are some of the good memories that I have of my patients, some nice smiles, some happy patients leaving my clinic, which make me remember or make me give that satisfaction that yes, I can do good and I can make my patients leave with a smile. All right. So don't give up. The beginning is always the hardest, and practice, practice, practice goes without saying. Anything that we need to master, you need to practice. Okay. Success is not far away if you keep your chin up and hope alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
So,
Dr. Sonali.
thank you so much for letting me present.
It was a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure it must have cleared doubts of so many of us. We're so thankful to you, Dr. Sonali. Um, this was full of knowledge for all of us, the practitioners especially. I already have few questions with me, which were there on the
Yes, ma'am.
chat. And
All
I
right.
would request all of you to put your queries on the chat. We'll take them one by one. Somebody, Dr. Anand was asking that he's used one product of other company who
Yes.
claimed to be the same, but he was very
Right.
unsatisfied.
Can you tell me what was your protocol? I mean, I'm sure you have used the diamond one. Like this product, I'm sure there are many more products in the market which are claiming that it blends or it has the chameleon effect. So if the protocol is not right, okay, if you have not followed the beveling, especially if you're talking about the anterior restoration, or you've not placed the opaque dentine shade in the anterior restoration, then it is not going to give you a good result. At the same time, not every company is able to give the right shade matching or the right chameleon effect. Okay, so there are a lot of studies done between different companies. Okay, for example, I'm talking about Omnichroma. Now we are talking about Tokuyama. Okay, when you compare Tokuyama with Charisma Diamond 1, there have been studies that Charisma Diamond 1 is slightly on a higher side when it comes to having the shade matching, having the flexural strength, having a lot of better properties. So try out this Charisma Diamond 1 and follow the right protocol. Like I said, if you don't follow the protocol, you may have certain limitations. If there is anything in particular you did not follow, in my cases, you will understand what I have done. So you may now get the right results.
I hope it is clear, Dr. Anand. Next question we have is, it's from Dr. Rajan Chabra. He's asking, what if we are building an edge? There is no base or background. So now which color will be reflected back to us?
I think I answered this question in my cases also, and not once but multiple times, that if we are doing an incisal edge or a class 4 buildup, like I showed in one of my last cases, you have to place an opaque dentine shade. All right, you have to choose the right dentine shade. It can be an A2 shade, A3 shade, whatever the tooth demands, and that now material that shade now will get reflected along with internal light scattering, along with the tooth reflection also, minor bit which is going to be present, and now that shade will get reflected.
Right. Next is from Dr. Sheenam. She's asking, how do you do interior layering, and do you have videos to show them?
Unfortunately, I do not have any video, but I think I've shown enough cases to show anterior layering right now, especially with this product. I showed you in a class 3, class 4 diastema. So I think that topic is already covered.
Then there's another one from Dr. Divya. She's asking, can you please explain about the etching technique?
So like I said, depending upon the depth of the cavity, if we have a deep cavity where we are worried about the sensitivity, I will only etch the enamel for 20 seconds. I will not touch the dentine. I will not etch the dentine. After I etch the enamel, I will thoroughly wash it, remove it, air dry it. And now we have a bond which is available in the market, which is 7th generation or all-in-one, which has or properties of etching themselves. So it has a self-etch property, and then I directly go ahead and use the self-etch bond. But if the cavity is shallow, wherein I'm not using any pulp protection material, or I'm just about using GIC or RMGIC, I can go ahead and etch the enamel as well as dentine. Like I said, enamel for 20 seconds and dentine for only 10 seconds. Wash it and then go ahead and use a 5th generation bond. Here I do not need to use a self-etch bond because I am etching the dentine also, and then go ahead and do the restoration.
Then there's another one from Dr. Rishabh Chand. He's asking the basic difference between Diamond 1 and Topaz 1.
See, Topaz 1 and Diamond 1 are almost on the similar lines. Okay. The only difference is the filler particles. Okay. So Diamond 1 has better aesthetics and polishability when you compare the Diamond 1 and Topaz 1. Okay. Topaz 1 is still not available actually in the market. However, I have used it. Topaz 1 has slightly different filler particles. So what happens is when you polish the Topaz 1, you don't get as much polishability that much you get with Charisma Diamond 1, and the workability of Topaz 1 is different than the Diamond 1. Okay, the chameleon effect is more or less similar, but the polishability is the most important point, which is different. Topaz 1 is slightly more opaque than Diamond 1.
During that time, I was also the chief resident pediatrician at a Georgia hospital and an assistant attorney general for the
Could you please mute just a
I was
second?
caught.
We have another one from Dr.
Yes,
Deepak. He's saying that is using OA2 in flow an option for class 4 cases?
flow. No. Flow doesn't have any anterior case, whether you do layering or not. Flow is never an option because you need good strength also in anterior. Class 4 is based on what? How does a restoration sustain itself in anterior restorations? Because we have enough tooth structure after etching, it will bond onto that. Okay, only that minor part of tooth the restoration is hanging on to. The remaining material has to be strong enough. It has to sustain itself. If you only use flow, the material is going to fracture very fast. So no flow. Yes, OA2, yes, but no flow. In anterior restorations, it has to be your nano hybrid composite only. Like it has to be a packable. I would not say packable, rather it has to be syringe form composite. It cannot be a flow. You can use injection molded technique. Okay, any composite, injection molded technique, but you cannot use a flowable composite to do your anterior restorations.
Dr. Sangeeta Muthal wants to know, should we use flow in deep posterior cavities as base?
Yes, you can use it. You can use it. There's no disadvantage in that.
Dr. Rajan Chabra is asking, will using a gauze or tissue to moist dry not contaminate the cavity?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
That if we use a gauze or a tissue to moist dry, would it not contaminate the cavity?
No, because you have to autoclave that also. You have to use autoclaved gauze. You have to use autoclaved tissue. In our implant surgeries, we autoclave everything, right? We have to autoclave everything and use it. Yes. So it has to be autoclaved. Yeah.
And Dr. Kanchanpreet is asking what to do when we have very different shades full of some discolored lines, hues, and all the patients want the same to be maintained. In such cases, we need to use tints. So can we use them with this material? And at what stage?
Yes. At what stage? Okay. Now, when I am doing a posterior restoration, see, posterior restoration, if you have crack lines and all that, you create that anatomy with the help of your instruments, and then you incorporate the tints at the last layer. By that, I mean you create a depth so much so that the tint will maintain itself over there and not get washed away or gone away with the help of polishing. So what you do is you create a depth, you incorporate your tints and light cure it. But this is after your restoration. That means you do your cuspal layering technique or your oblique layering technique or whatever technique you want. You create the anatomy, put your tints, light cure it and polish it. So my tints are always the last thing. My last thing, so that is where I'm going to incorporate my small minor details.
Dr. Komal wants to know, what about the staining or discoloration of this material post-op?
No, see, it's ultimately a nano hybrid material. Okay, you are using any product, whatever product you have in your clinic. Okay, I am sure for anterior, if you are doing aesthetics, okay, if you are doing aesthetic restoration, composite restoration, you all have a nano hybrid or a nano fill. What happens to that product? Does it get discolored very fast? No, it will not, because ultimately it is a nano hybrid product. Okay, the properties of composite are not changing per se, only the color adaptation properties are changing. So if you've polished your restoration well, even a micro hybrid will not get stained. So this will also not get discolored if you polish the restoration very well. Yes, of course, eventually with time, okay, it can be depending on how good you've polished it. If you don't polish it well, the restoration will get discolored even in 1 year. But if you've polished it well, the margins are nice and flushed, then your polishing remains for years altogether.
I don't think so there's any other question. And it was really wonderful. I can see from the chat that people are really, they've been asking so many questions and they're happy and they must have learned a lot today. Chutti ka use ho gaya aaj hamara bahut acha. And now I would like to hand over this to Mr. Jaswinder Singh from Kulzer. I think he wants to say something.
Dr. Romika, I don't think we can hear you.
Sorry. I'm handing it over to Jaswinder Singh ji.
Am I
Hello,
audible?
am I audible?
Now?
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. I will not take much time, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. I just wanted to say a note of
Sorry,
thanks.
Jaswinder ji. I think Dr. Sonali has lost her internet connection.
Okay. Well, I hope that she rejoins again. In the meanwhile, I'll just say a small note of thanks. Dr. Romika, thank you very much for being very instrumental in organizing this webinar. Without your cooperation and support, this webinar could not have been done. So thanks a lot, for all that help and support. And I also want to extend a very big thanks to all the participants who have spared their precious time on a non-working day and joined this session and made it even more interactive. And last but not the least, yes, definitely a major thanks to Dr. Sonali for such a wonderful and enriching session. And, I'm looking forward to many more such sessions in the future to come, and to have this opportunity to associate with IDA Mohali again. A small information for all the participants is that we have some special offers for all the webinar participants, which have already been posted on our WhatsApp group. So please go through it. And if you want to avail it, then the details of Jan Dental Company is also there mentioned. And your personalized e-certificates will be mailed to you on your personal email IDs. So thanks again. Thank you very much to all of you. That's it from my side, Dr. Romika.
Okay, so thank you so much, Jaswinder ji from Kulzer and Dr. Sonali. It's been really wonderful interacting with you, cleared so many of doubts myself also, and hope to meet you in future for more of the webinars. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank all the participants who were there throughout the webinar, and that they made it a success actually. Thanks to everybody. So I think now we'll just leave the meeting, all of you. Thank you.